Thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is a great tease of an outstanding season of television. Hopefully that's a good tease for you to see the rest. But let's bring out our panelists, beginning with Gustaf Hammarsten. Ashley Madekwe. Luke Kirby. Mandy Moore. And Edgar Ramirez. I'm realizing I forgot to introduce myself. I'm David Campbell with Vanity Fair. Hello, everybody.
Bravo.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
What an awesome show, yeah. Edgar, let's start with you. You are playing here a pretty complicated character, I think it's safe to say. Can you tell us a little bit about what you knew about Paolo before coming into this project and what made you want to play him?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Actually, I love when you start, when Mandy starts these conversations. And feel free to jump in.
It's a question about you.
I know, but
Maybe we should answer.
Yeah, exactly. Please
He
do.
loved
Please
playing
do.
this
Actually,
character.
yeah. I love exactly.
We were very smitten with Paolo from the get-go.
Especially you.
Yeah.
No, it was an amazing experience. I didn't know much. I didn't actually. I was really surprised that I didn't hear, about what went on for so many years, too many years. In this case, I had no clue until I was invited to do the show, and then I was completely appalled by the extent of these events and for how long he was able to sustain this web of lies, and which for him was basically more than lies. It was just a fantasy, which is like the way as an actor that I was able to navigate these dark, choppy waters in the story. I think that he always felt that because and you will see when I think you only saw the first episode, but as you move through the show, you'll see that there is no moment of admission or accountability. There's no moment of introspection for Paulo, and I think, and it's only my theory, it's only my thoughts as an actor. He just decided that this was a fantasy, and everything within the framework of this fantasy was true, and he committed to this fantasy until the very end, regardless of the consequences.
Was it a dark headspace to be in as an actor, just given the depths of what he did and given where the show goes and how intense it gets?
It was at the beginning when I was doing the research, which both Mandy and I were very disciplined about in containing it and keeping our own research very contained, very tight, because the entire story and everything that we needed to know about the characters was already on the page. As I tried to research on my own, I realized if I do it too much, if my knowledge of the character increases, it will be very difficult not to judge him as an actor, to judge my character. So I had to, again, keep the research very contained so that my headspace wouldn't be that dark. Because the reality is that, as any other human being, we operate, no pun intended, but we operate in positive. We wake up in the morning thinking or hoping that whatever we do is going to be for the good of the world, the good of the people that we love, because otherwise we would not get up in the morning. So he would never this is like a friend of mine said many years ago in a conversation, said if the Wicked Witch knew that she was the Wicked Witch, she would never be the Wicked Witch. That you don't see yourself until, I think that whenever you see the monster on the mirror, that's where then maybe it's where you touch suicidal zone, or it's like when the reflection that you get back from the mirror is horrible. And I think that the character that I played never had that moment, never had that encounter with himself. I think that so to answer your question, my mental my headspace was, sounds contradictory, but it was not dark, because whatever I was experiencing as Paulo was positive, and he was doing everything for the better of the rest of the people around him, and for the best of the woman that he fell in love with, etc., etc.
Mandy, you are not playing the Wicked Witch, quite far from it, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
How did you initially sort of connect with Bonita? What about her really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I was a fan of the first season, and this opportunity sort of came my way, and I read the first 2 scripts and was like, wow, yes, I want to be a part of this. I was a big fan of Edgar's, and I loved sort of the tone of the show. It was something I'd never really dipped my toe in before, but I just was struck by how capable and smart Bonita is, and this badass career woman at the top of her field, and the fact that she was able to find herself the victim of this level of manipulation and deception. I hope that she's able, as the series goes on, to sort of act as a conduit for the audience to sort of be able to see themselves, because if it could happen to her, it could happen to anybody. So I was really fascinated by that dynamic, and the duality of the fact that this was very much a love story at its core, at least the first half of the season, and sort of getting to understand the through line and the dichotomy between who Paulo was in his personal life, and obviously how that seeped into the professional, and sort of just kind of went back and forth. I found that to be a really interesting dynamic to explore too.
Yeah, one thing I love about the show and your performance in the show is, while she does fall, into this man's spell, she's never a victim. She's remains a really nuanced character, and I imagine that was pretty important for you. So can you talk about maintaining that part of her, particularly as things start to go awry?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of dignity in even in the midst of what she experiences and how her life sort of falls to pieces. I think on the surface, if someone were to say, you're going to meet this doctor and fall in love with him, and he's going to, propose to you and promise that the Pope is going to officiate your wedding, obviously that seems totally implausible. But I think, again, when someone is this masterfully manipulative, they plant those seeds so quietly and slowly that you never really see it happening. And that's how she sort of fell victim and prey. I think she was also in this very specifically vulnerable moment in her life that allowed her to be susceptible to this this man's deceptive ways. But again, I feel like as her journey sort of continues throughout the series, I think there's a lot of redemption for her in how she chooses to sort of take stock of her life, and how empowering it is to tell her story. And I hope ultimately people walk away thinking, okay, there's hopefully some destigmatizing the idea of being a victim, and the shame and the guilt that sort of can come along with someone finding themselves in a position like this.
I think really in the first episode we see a journalist, people in the medical community, fall under this spell and really be lured into what he is promising. So for those playing members of the medical community, Luke, for example, how do you walk into a role like that, and that kind of position with a level of skepticism, but also this understanding that there is so much hype and excitement around this great figure with this great cure?
I think that Nathan Gamelli sort of abides by a kind of very strict and traditional principle around medicine and science, guided by empirical data, peer review, like all of these things are set up for a reason, and he he believes in the long story of science. It takes multiple generations to find out, whether or not a hypothesis is right or wrong. It's not something that a person can do in one lifetime. And so seeing somebody who holds this promise immediately, rings a bell for him and is peculiar and odd and a little dubious. I also think that Nate's probably, a little envious of this man's sort of his charm, his sort of aura, the sort of high degree of adulation. He's a very talented surgeon. He has great acumen. I think that's all. I don't think he's void of competition. I think there's an aspect to it that's also about that. Yeah. Too bad Bonita didn't come talk to us. 'Cause we could have told her a few things.
Spoiler alert. Ashley, in terms of your character, there's an interesting question of complicity that's really introduced right away because, of course, as this rolls on, I'm sure viewers can imagine that things are going to get complicated for those who are working with him. So how did you strike that balance?
I think that there's an element of denial in the complicity, at least in the first half of the show, because you want to believe what you want to believe. I mean, Luke talks about something being too good to be true, but I think Anna really wanted it to be true. She's incredibly ambitious, and she meets this charismatic, famous doctor whose research is aligning with her own research, and it comes at a time when things like stem cell research were like, people thought this was the great hope. I mean, we still kind of do, but it hasn't been proven. And so she wanted to believe what she wanted to believe. And I think when she realizes that she's been complicit in harming people, that's a real hurtful moment for herself. It's quite heartbreaking, I think, because she ruins everything she's worked for.
Gustaf, with your character as well, there is this balance of we get to know his personal life, and you're also at the center of this effort to find out what's really going on. Can you talk a little bit about that and playing those two sides?
Yes, I have family myself, 3 daughters, so I could definitely relate to the having people depending on you when you have to you decided to stand up for the truth, even though it might hurt you or even maybe devastate you. And of course, I could relate to the whole story because I'm Swedish, so I know that I've actually been to this Karolinska. I took my kids there, and I'd been at this prison ward, hospital ward at 2015 when actually Paolo was active there. But luckily I had a sinus problem, so otherwise maybe I could be an actor in the show. If it would be in the throat, maybe my name would be here and another actor would play me. So, but
Would you like that better?
No, because I'm so nervous. No. Yeah, what was the question? Yeah. Yeah, this story was, of course, I knew a lot about Paolo because, he kind of damaged the Swedish reputation. So for me, it was fantastic to play the Swede in this story and the whistleblower, to try to get back a little bit of the reputation back to Sweden.
It's always fun to play a whistleblower. For the 3 of you, you guys get to work together in the show. Can you just talk about working together a little bit and getting to be a part of that kind of a narrative that's more of the thriller element, the taking down the bad guy element?
It's awful to work with them. It's terrible. A real bad experience. No, it was great. I think very quickly.
Fly that joke.
Very quickly, we had a dynamic that felt really familiar, and we slotted into that hostile, familiar dynamic that we slotted into. And I am the last of the whistleblowers to join the whistleblowing, and you eventually accepted me.
I think that we accepted.
Today?
Yes.
I talked him into accepting you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a real joy to get to be in this little dynamic.
Yeah.
And it kind of happened very, our little energy happened very quickly. We just opened a door and there we were, and it's sort of, you know, we felt like real friendship. You know, really, really nice, and you know, and kind of, you know, it had sibling rivalry aspects, and that was really
But not you and me.
really fun. No,
Oh, did we? No, we were brothers.
I would never.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, well,
siblings.
that's
That's
siblings.
siblings.
Yeah.
That's what siblings are.
I know. She's always teaching me English. Yeah, but I think the first scene that I did and you did as well was the scene who is in the first episode, which is in the first
yes,
episode.
yeah.
You know, at the soccer bar. So it was like all in, you know, getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And you were looking at me, why is
That's
this
right,
guy
like,
screaming?
who's this
Am I
white
going to do
guy?
8 episodes with this
Yeah.
crazy Swede?
But then
You
to,
did.
to pursue that sort of that righteous quest together was also really, you know, it just felt very seamless, you know, just to kind of move into that little make believe. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to watch.
Yeah, thanks.
Love story between the two of you centers this show in a rather dark and twisted at times way. So how did you two develop that together?
Oh, it was awful. It's so hard to fall in love with Edgar. No, I too feel like our chemistry was sort of palpable, and it was on the surface, and it was immediate. Like, it was just so easy to chat with you and talk about the way we both work, and I think we're very much aligned in that sense.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And it always felt comfortable. I felt very safe immediately with Edgar and sort of our incredible crew, and Ashley Michael and Jen Morrison, who directed these first 4 episodes, like, which is really where the love story like lives and then falls apart. So it was, yeah, it also felt seamless. It was just so much fun to kind of, yeah, just truly fall in love and like really give yourself leaning into that dynamic of like the ultimate fairy tale. I mean, I think for my character, she was a single mother. She was really work focused, and the idea of a love like this entering her life was something she never really dreamed for herself. So I think it was hard for her to initially buy in and ultimately abandon her, you know, journalistic ethics to cross those boundaries and cross that line and give in and you know, endeavor to have this relationship with Paolo. But yeah, it was the work aspect of it all did not feel like work.
It was, yeah, I agree. It was so easy to fall in love with you, and to feel equally as safe and as protected by you.
Yeah.
So it was immediately we felt that we could be each other's safety net while navigating this very strange dark waters. And I think that's precisely the love story that exists at the very core of the piece, at the very core of the series, what makes it so interesting, or at least for us, because it creates attention right away. I mean, you know, I mean, this case is famous. I mean, this case is, a lot of people know, a lot of people will discover it, but also a lot of people around the world knows the story. They know exactly how it ends, how it is ending actually. And I think that having a love story so strong, so palpable, at the get-go already creates a very palpable tension. And I think that is the juxtaposition of the love story, of the real, of the light, of two people falling in love against the darkness of what is happening on the medical side, as almost 2 trains that are going, you know, to crash. It's basically his life, you know, like the both aspects of his life, the personal and the professional one. I as a, you know, as I was reading the episodes and understanding how the whole show was going to play out, I found it fascinating. And I think that also opens up the space and the room to basically talk about, it goes beyond the medical, it goes beyond the story at hand, to open up the space to discuss and to explore greater subjects of humanity, hope, trust, unfinished chapters, which is something that Mandy and I have been discussing today as we have these conversations with the press and now with you here, because a lot of thoughts are coming up right now because it is the first time that we're talking, that we're thinking about these characters as actors outside of the characters, and I think there's something about this guy, the guy that I played. He was very sensitive. I mean, unfortunately, very sensitive in identifying the unfinished stories of everyone. So they're like unfinished chapters, and these people, con artists, they know exactly. They have the sensitivity to identify where are not only the vulnerabilities, what are the stories that their targets haven't finished, the loose ends in their lives. So that's what he did with all the characters, aside with the exception of my dear friend here, who never, he never revealed. But that is the thing, he never opened up, and not. And it is a chemistry thing, because what you said earlier, and we have been discussing all day. It is very easy to fall into the victim blaming of anyone who has been at the unfortunate receiving end of a manipulation. To say, how could you believe this guy? How could you believe this person? But the reality is that no one is exempt. I mean, no one is above the possibility of being deceived. Actually, the question should not be why, how could you believe him? No, why are there people who are willing to devote their biggest talents to damage other people? That is the question here. And I think that the character that I played used all of his talents to identify the weak spots, the aspirations, the places, the childhood dreams of other people, the fairy tale, the ambition to become a great scientist, to become another great scientist. I think that's, and we're basically talking about, we're transcending the medical. We're talking about how we can all be, a victim of a deceit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clearly a role and a subject matter that stays with you.
Yeah.
And as you were saying earlier, there's an incredible amount of information on this man. In this case, there's a Vanity Fair article.
Yeah.
There is a podcast.
Yeah.
There are news articles, because as you say, this is not even finished yet. So for all of you, like, what parts of research did you find helpful in crafting your characters, diving into this world? Whoever wants to start on that one.
I found the podcast really helpful, at least from Bonita's perspective. I mean, it is her story in her own words, her own voice. I found the Vanity Fair article pretty enlightening as well. There was so much like source material at our hands, at our fingertips, that it just, and so much on the page, the scripts, the written word for us as actors, that like so much of our job in the research department, I guess, was done for us in that sense. But yeah, I loved the podcast specifically too.
Yeah, and I can say, we weren't really, our characters were like a mashup. Yeah. But I will say it was all in the script, and I have to say that the showrunner, Ashley Michael Hoban, was really, Luke was talking about open doors, and she's the person that made all the good things in this show, come true. Yeah. Because she's immediately opened the door to me, and I guess all the actors, she wanted to include us and ask us what are your thoughts and how do you feel about this. So you felt included and a part of it, and you could explore and experiment, the characters and work with it. And so it's based on real characters, but you're doing we have to rely on the fiction. You can't. This is not a documentary. You have to find your own doctor, journalist. The spirit of the reality, and find your own dreams and hopes and act that out. On the screen, on the TV.
Ashley, Luke, did you guys have to get your science down?
I mean, well, I have that. I keep that down. I think it's true. Ashley Michael was she was such a great resource for any kind of curiosity, any information, any facts, any peculiarities, just sort of, you know, what at the end of it really just felt like a kind of a reliant presence to sort of then make you feel free to, you know, step onto the playground and, you know, muck about a bit and see what landed. In terms of, you know, my time at doctor school. Is that what it's called? Doctor school?
That's
That's
exactly
where
what we
doctors
call
go.
it. Doctor
Yeah.
school.
You know, we were also provided, you know, a great deal of information and whatever we want. You know, we got to go and witness operations. We all went into, we stood in surgeries and watched people get cut open and smelled the flesh burning and looked at the bones and saw the blood getting sucked out. And, you know, it was remarkable, a really great insight into the kind of responsibility that, you know, that medical practitioners have. You know, bodies when put under, you know, just start to just look like slabs, you know, and doctors are, you know, surgeons have to be so mechanical and precise in their work, and the time that they have to do their work. You know, they can't really spend a lot of time thinking about look at this person, and let me think about their family and their, you know, their backstory. They have to get in there, and just being in that presence was a real, really illuminating for me about how, you know, how close doctors have the line that they have to walk. You know, and they have a huge responsibility to remind themselves of, you know, that these are people, and, you know, they're not to be experimented on. I mean, you know, things would be a lot easier if we just said, oh yeah, we can just experiment and see what happens, but, you know, it's not the deal. Yet.
So the last word to you, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I second what you guys said, but the podcast was a huge source of inspiration for me because I was already a fan of it. I love true crime podcasts anyway, maybe a little too much. And so I was already very much aware of it and was excited to take part. And then for the research, getting to attend those surgeries was really, really important for me. It gave me a freedom on the day when we were performing surgeries. I just had that knowledge in the back of my head. And we also were really lucky to have a surgical consultant on set when we were doing surgeries. And a lot of the other players in those surgery scenes were nurses or doctors themselves, so they were on hand. And I really enjoyed learning like the medical jargon stuff. That is also that's the technical term.
I think all that prep, all that work really shows in this series. So I hope you guys check out the rest of the season. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.